Today's video is going to be a little bit different. It's actually going to be a fiber optic sign repair video of a Toyworks World of Nintendo fiber optic sign. This sign is a prototype of the KB Toys fiber optic sign. The guy that bought this actually bought it and didn't know that there was 60 plus broken fibers. I'll get a better shot of that, but there's a bunch in the R, there's a couple in the W over here. But anyways, I brought it over to my friend Matt's house. We're gonna take it apart. We're gonna do some precision drilling, make sure everything's back in sequence properly, and yeah, just fix it up properly. So anyways, let me give you guys the rundown on it.
All right, we're just gonna cut some of these zip ties and see what we're working with here. Now, the best way to cut zip ties, in my opinion, is right across the top like this. That way you don't risk nicking any of the wires or fibers or whatever. So if you can, just cut the top off right like that. Got stuff like this. It looks like that broken fiber was kind of inside of that zip tie there, so that's probably going to have to be a splice. But probably what happened is these little angle brackets that hold on the front panel broke loose, and they kind of flop around in there and break fibers. And we've seen this with a couple of other signs before.
My Game Boy fiber that had 20 something broken fibers had the exact same issue where those got knocked loose.
Yep, so when we do put them back on, we're going to be VHB taping them. So
we should probably take the other ones off and VHB tape them too, just so those don't get knocked off.
That would probably be a good idea, yeah. All right, well, I think the first thing we're going to do is clean the wheel, first of all, because I think the wheel is pretty dirty, and just get a really good idea of what we're working with, label out what fibers aren't illuminating, and then identify which one of those are sheared at the panel and which one of them are kind of splices that we're going to have to do midway. So, yeah, let's clean that wheel.
Let's get it. And you said the side that has the colors printed on it goes facing the fibers.
Exactly. So the colors are all printed on this side, and this side is just the acrylic. So we want to make sure we put it back together the same way. If that makes a difference, I'm not really sure, but
if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right.
Yeah, let's put it back together the same way, whether we need to or not. That washer's stuck on there, so let's not mess with it.
We'll just give it a nice wipe down.
Yeah, it might peel something off for all you know.
We'll put it back together, plug it in, see if that made a difference with any of the fibers.
Yeah, my guess is no, but
you never know.
Looks like we got a little scratch right up here too.
I don't think that would make a big difference.
No.
My NES fiber actually had a really dirty color wheel, and when I got it, there were like 70 or 80 fibers that weren't illuminating, and I thought they were all broken. I actually hit up Matt and I was like, dude, there's 70 broken fibers.
He was like crying.
I wasn't crying. But anyways, I cleaned the color wheel and then everything lit up perfectly except for like 6. So we didn't have to fix 70, we just had to fix 6.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. And most of those were broken off at the surface too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it still took us like 5 or 6 hours to get it done.
Yeah, that's all just being super, super careful.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, realistic, like if there's a million of these out there, you could do a repair in like a couple of hours, but it's like, you just want to be, you just need to be so careful. It's ridiculous. Makes everything take.
Yeah, these signs, for everybody watching who doesn't know, these signs are extremely rare and valuable. So we cleaned the color wheel, just wiped it down with some paper towels and tap water.
Yep.
Gave it a nice wipe down. We're gonna screw it back in and then see if that makes a difference with any of the fibers.
And make sure you get the spacing far enough that the wheel doesn't scratch on anything. So it wasn't scratching before, and I didn't mess with this back nut, but it's just jam nutted onto the shaft here. So you like take 2 nuts and tighten them into each other. So I'm holding the back nut right now with another wrench.
You also don't want to tighten it too much to where it cracks the acrylic.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you know what we can do though is we can do our flashlight trick from the front to identify breaks in the middle. So here, you should be able to see where that break is happening. I think it was one of these, right? Yeah, it's right there. It's in that zip tie bundle.
Yep.
And sometimes they do bend sharply and sort of leak light out of that bend, but it doesn't leak enough light that you can actually tell. So I bet if I shined light through a lot of these, you might be able to see little
kinks.
Yeah, little light leaking through, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, you can see light leaking through them.
Yeah. But this, yeah, that's a break.
100%. So he's just cutting the other zip ties down here so we can start rerouting some stuff before we precision drill out all of these. We did use some post-it notes to kind of mark which ones are broken. So like from here to here, we'll drill all those out. We'll drill out all the ones in the middle. And then from here up to here. Anyways, we're just gonna do it a couple at a time.
So it looks like all these fibers are the same size. So we got a 0.75 millimeter drill bit that I got from McMaster, and we're gonna be using that in a Dremel. So it's a really small drill bit, so you wanna choke up as much as possible to get through the panel. But keep in mind, if you get stuff that's gonna build up on this drill bit and you're way choked up on it, that could make a spin mark on top of your sign. And so it's kind of a balance. You got to be real careful with that. So I'll go about here and just be really careful that we're knocking material off so nothing builds up as we go.
Pull it out, clean off the built up material, and
Exactly. And anybody that's used a drill press knows exactly what I'm talking about, you know.
yeah.
We don't want that swirl pattern.
And we've said this in a few of our other fiber repair videos as well.
Yep. All right, so we started to lay the sign down to drill those fibers, and the panel was flopping around. So we're going to re-stick those two brackets before we do anything else. So I'm gonna clean the surface in there with some alcohol while trying not to get it on the fibers, because that's not good for it.
So we found another broken angle bracket way back there, tucked behind all the fibers. And our fingers are just too big to get it out, so he grabbed that.
It's in a really bad spot. Maybe I can just inch it over.
Got it.
Whew. And look what's stuck to it. A broken fiber.
Surprise, surprise.
What can you do? Go back in time and tell them, like, no, glue them or something. Alright, just put this bracket in.
So you just use some VHB tape?
Yep.
Make sure that's stuck on there real good so that the panel isn't floppy anymore.
Yep. And that bracket that we just fished out of that bundle, we're not going to put that in right now. It's just a little bit too risky, and we don't need it for drilling. So we'll just decide what we're going to do with that later.
But we do have it off to the side over there.
Yeah. And we are going to have to pull out all these old brackets. I mean, I would just say, well, we could just put new brackets in, you know, to reinforce it. But the problem is those are falling off and breaking fibers, so.
Yeah, we don't want them to fall off and break more fibers on the way back to the guy.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. So give us the rundown on what this little setup is here for the people.
This is a little Dremel drill press attachment that I actually got garage sailing with you for $5, which
turned out to be quite handy.
Yep, comes in handy. Then this is a Dremel 4000, just kind of your basic Dremel, and I have a reducing collet in there with a 0.75 millimeter twist drill.
We put some weights on here just so it doesn't get front heavy.
Yeah, one thing that we don't want to do is have this set up pivot or you know, drop into the surface. We're gonna have to be really careful because if we stop paying attention, it's gonna be really easy for us to damage it. Yeah.
Yep. And then we got it all sitting on a board just so we don't have this set up directly on the panel itself.
Exactly. Yep.
It's more like on the frame. And with that angle bracket in, there's no more wobble on the panel here, so there's no wobble while we're drilling. Everything is stationary.
Yeah, what is it? The 3 R's of machining. Rigidity, rigidity, rigidity. I think that applies here.
All right, we get a shot of him drilling a couple of these out. I'm not gonna get a shot of every one being drilled out just because it's like a rinse and repeat process, but I'll get a little footage of a couple of them.
Well, Well, I'm taking these little finger poker things and I'm using them kind of like a center punch.
Lancet?
Yeah, it's a lancet. So I'm making a mark right in the center of the fiber so the drill bit won't walk, because I think the fiber is a little bit harder than the material around it. So there's a real tendency, especially if the fiber is sticking above the surface of the panel, for it to just slip off to the side and drill a hole right next to it. So that's kind of what we're fighting.
So as you can see, some material built up on the drill bit there, so he's just removing that before he goes and drills deeper. Otherwise it'll result in like a cone-shaped hole where we're drilling. It's the next weekend. We spent like 6 or 7 hours last weekend working on this thing, and back at my buddy's house, we're gonna get back to work on it. He's gonna give us the rundown on what we're doing today, so let's get to it. All right, Matt, so how are we gonna decipher the sequencing here?
Well, we're gonna start from fibers, basically we're gonna start from top to bottom, and the way that we're gonna figure out what's bottom and what's top, come back here. We've taken the color wheel out, so there's no color wheel in. Only the bottom bank can receive light right now, and the top is just taped off with some that aluminum tape stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this piece of plastic and slide it in front of that bottom bank. And if you go on the front side, you can see what happens when I do that. We're basically simulating the wheel spinning in a way that we can stop wherever we want. So if you see as I slide this, it should illuminate from top to bottom.
Or bottom to top.
Yeah, bottom to top, excuse me. So then if you come back here, you can look at this rat's nest of broken fibers. When you have all the light, it's anybody's guess which one of these fibers goes in which hole. But when we slide this, what we can do is we can slide a little bit out, and then we have a few fiber ends that are going to be candidates. And so it's a pretty good assumption that those go in the bottom. So we're going to build it that way from bottom to top. As we plug them in, we're just going to find more loose ends and work our way up. Then after that, the plan is to take a high-speed video of the wheel spinning and it illuminating how it's supposed to. And we'll see if there's any that are out of order. So we're gonna take our best educated guess with the technique I just said, and then check it with high-speed camera, and yeah, just educated guess and check, I guess.
Trial and error.
Yeah, basically, that really basically is it. We're gonna try to be as smart as possible about it, but there is some guesswork involved.
All right.
Just how it is. Well, right now we got some of these fiber ends illuminated right here, but these ends I'm pretty sure need to go right around here, and it's just really difficult to get them routed. So I gotta take this end, sort of feed it back through this way, get it coming up over here, so then I can plug it in behind all of these wires, because there's just not enough slack to go just to plug it directly in. I mean, I just can't quite get to it.
So what we had done was took a bundle and taped a paracord, wrapped it with a paracord, and taped it up here to kind of get it out of the way so we could reroute it.
Yeah, that's how we got the top of that R, or the bottom of the R where it has that little corner. We just pulled everything out of the way.
So that's kind of what we're fighting right now. So we spent about an hour and a half so far today plugging in a bunch in the bottom of the R over here, and you can tell that it's illuminating in sequence. Looks pretty good. So I'm just gonna let this run. All right. You can even see that they're hanging out. Because we haven't glued them in place yet. We want to make sure everything's proper before we glue anything.
Yeah, we also don't want to lose track of which ones we need to glue.
That's right. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. So it is the next weekend and we're back at it. My buddy Matt here has this sliding contraption that he made, and he's gonna demonstrate how it works.
Let's show you what it is first. So it's just 5 shutters so we can block off each one of the banks and then pause it so we can identify fibers that are hanging, where they're supposed to go in the bank. So I made that. Made a couple of wheels too. I made a sweep wheel. So this just sweeps through all the colors, kind of does the same thing, and then a slit wheel. So this just will illuminate a very small slit, just a few fibers at a time as it sweeps. And that's another thing that we can help to sequence things. So I'll put the shutter wheel in now. Or just the shutter. No, it's not a wheel, I guess.
And it just slides back and forth so that we can illuminate it and check that they're illuminating in sequence or not.
Yep, so we're working right around here. See, in the middle of the R, for instance, we've got a couple of fibers in there that we can tell right away are out of sequence. So I'm gonna be pulling those fibers out. Gonna take this fiber and this fiber, probably this fiber too. We know that they go lower in here somewhere, so I'll probably try that more around this area. Fortunately, this is the hardest area to get to. It's a little frustrating.
It's hard to get to because there's so many fiber strands in here, and reaching back behind all of them is just kind of a hassle.
Yeah, to actually get in there with anything but like a long tweezers is pretty difficult.
So that's what we're working with right now. We've got about 40 hours into working on this thing over the course of several months. And my buddy Matt here came up with a really crafty way on how to splice these broken fibers that are broken halfway. You want to fill everybody in on that?
Yeah, so what we ended up doing was taking insulation off of this wire. This is 20 gauge solid wire. And so you just strip a chunk off of that. Hold on. So you get a chunk of the wire insulation, and what you want to do is cut a piece of aluminum tape that's slightly shorter than the insulation that you just cut. Oh, that's a little long. And then you just roll it up. That one wasn't very straight, but you get the idea. So the aluminum keeps it rigid, and the wire insulation blocks the light and also gives it a little bit of a bend right as it enters the splice. So you can look at it in the sign over here. That's what they look like complete. And we do a drop of glue on each end of it.
And which glue are we using?
We're using this stuff. JB Weld Super Weld. This is a UV curing super glue, some kind of CA glue. So you want to get just a really small drop on there, because if the drop is too big, when you cure the glue with the UV light, it'll heat up and it can damage the fiber. So what we were doing a lot was taking just a drop of this glue and putting it on the end of a toothpick, and then taking that toothpick and just kind of wiping the excess right at the end of the fiber and then curing it that way. There's a few times where I had to get like a chopstick with a toothpick on it and then fish this in there, get some glue on it, and then cure it with a UV laser pointer. So yeah, that's fun, but getting to it is definitely the hard part. But, I'm really happy with that technique, because before we were using just the wire insulation, and I remember you sold the sign to somebody and he like did an amendum to your video where he was using like furniture dowels with a hole drilled through it. And I think that's a lot better than just the insulation, because it's rigid, you know, the fibers are going to stay pointing at each other. But I think this is the best of both worlds, and super cheap, super easy to do. You can make 1 million of them in 10 minutes. So.
And he also bought a new drill bit that chokes up a lot higher.
That's right. So instead of using standard twist drills, I'm using this style of drill. Now you can get these off of eBay. These are designed for making printed circuit boards with. And the advantage to this is it basically has the choke up built into it. So it's totally rigid up until the point where it reduces. And also there's solid carbide, so it's a little bit more rigid, doesn't wobble around, and it's going to stay sharp for longer. So I think the reason that a lot of these got damaged is a few of these brackets broke off and were bouncing around in there during shipping. So the brackets that were broken off, there was 3 of them. We used a 3M brand VHB tape to stick those back on. But then as an additional layer of security, we put this aluminum tape over all of these because we didn't want to break off the old brackets and clean them and re-stick them because a lot of them seem to be sticking pretty well as it is. But this way, if the original adhesive does break, at least the bracket won't be flopping around in there is the idea.
Looks pretty good. I might actually take my fiber signs down and do this to them as well, just as reinforcement. We also noticed that this sign says top number 1 in there, so we assume that this might be the first of these signs produced, because there were 2 of these found, and I actually texted the owner of this sign and asked him, and he said that the other one does say top number 2 inside. So
this is it. This is the original sign, huh?
This is the original ToyWorks number 1 fiber optic sign. All right, last week we finished all of the world of, it's kind of a rinse and repeat process, so I'm not recording everything, but today we're gonna finish up the last 6 fibers in this sign, and they are in the starburst pattern around the ToyWorks. So we just fed this first one through, and now we're gonna work on this one and slowly work our way over. So should be pretty straightforward. All of these just pretty much need to be plugged in, so. What a project that was. The hardest part was the letter R. All of those were broken right next to each other, so sequencing that was, boy, that was something. Yep, no broken fibers. Everything looks good. It's been a couple of months since I've recorded any footage with this thing, and it's getting picked up in the morning. So I just want to finish the video off by taking a video of this in the dark showing its whole animation before it gets picked up tomorrow. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to finish the video off that way.